Welcome back to the Aussie Shed, ladies and gentlemen. Just a quick DIY video for those of you out there that own right-hand drive Nissan 370Zs or Zs, and also right-hand drive Nissan 370 GTs, which is the good old G37 in the USA. So what I'm doing, folks, is I'm making a brake master cylinder stopper. So why do you need one of those, I hear you ask? Well, let me explain, folks. Under light and medium braking loads, your pedal feel is generally very good in this vehicle. It has huge brakes with big 4-piston calipers on the front, slotted rotors, good pads, all that sort of stuff. But I have noticed that high braking force, when you're really in the upper areas of braking, you know, when you're trying to pull the car down from really high speed and modulate the brake pedal, it feels a bit doughy. And the reason I think that is at least partially due to the firewall flexing under those really heavy loads when you're really stomping your foot hard on the brake and sort of holding it there, and then trying to modulate as well at those really high loads. So I thought, no worries, I'll just grab a brake master cylinder stopper. Surely someone makes one for a right-hand drive vehicle of this kind, but no, they don't. If this was a left-hand drive 370Z or a G37, I could just buy one off the shelf from Z1 Motorsports. I looked pretty extensively on the internet and at various suppliers of those types of components, and I couldn't find anyone that has a part for these right-hand drive vehicles. So naturally I thought, oh well, bugger it, I'm just going to make my own, and surely it can't be too hard. So I've had a look at a lot of photos of the Z1 370Z brake master cylinder stopper, and they've designed it around an anchor point on that side of the car, which doesn't exist on this side of the car. So you can't just simply mirror reverse it and make one for this side of the car. You've got to come up with a completely different solution. So let's get into it and I'll show you my solution. So apologies folks, I've got the camera in handheld mode and I'm also holding a light above this area because it is quite dark in there, even with all the lights on here in the shed and a light aiming under the bonnet of the vehicle. It's still not ideal, but you can see down under here, that's our the end of our brake master cylinder, and you know, this is the area that we have. Now, you can see these two holes here. I've actually drilled those holes, folks. They're the holes that I have made for the bracket that I've made. So, yes, you can see roughly where they end up, and we do have access to these from underneath. So I'll start you through the process of how I figured out the location and the shape of the bracket and how it sort of evolved into what it is. It's very hard to see what's going on here, folks. I do apologise for that. I can't even find a good angle that you can sort of get a better look at it all. We're just going to have to sort of struggle on. Alright, so this is obviously the piece that we're trying to stop moving forward. So I thought, okay, well, I'll just build something in front of it with an adjuster on it. So the first thing I did, folks, is I cut out this little piece of cardboard. Well, this isn't the first thing I did. This was obviously much bigger, and I slowly cut it down until I reached the desired shape. And now what I'm using this for is to just profile the bottom of this area, because as you can see, it's not flat. That's how it sits in there. We'll just sit it over those holes. And I did that to get me the distance off the brake master cylinder there, and also, you know, a rough height that I need to be able to make the thing work, and also a length so that it actually butts into this lip on this side that comes up to carry this sort of false firewall here, because this thing isn't very strong. You know, it's got a lot of flex in it, but down the bottom where it's welded onto the inner guard and the strut tower there, it's very, very strong. So we can use that as something to rest up against with the bracket. The bolt should hold it anyway, but you know, it's there, so we may as well use it. So from this, I then use that to come up with this. Now this is just a piece of wood, and I use this to just start roughing out the shape that I wanted. You can see it's kind of, if we look at it on that side, it's very similar to this. It's slightly longer. When I had the cardboard in there, I thought, oh yeah, it needs to be a little bit longer than that. And you can see that it's very similar to this in sort of many ways. It's sort of an evolution of this sort of a piece. But basically I've gone from that to this. Now, once I got this piece roughly where I wanted it to be by test fitting it on the vehicle, I drilled a hole in the end of it and even just sort of roughly mounted in an adjusting bolt just to see if it's all going to sort of fit up. So back over here, you can see that's our master cylinder there that we're banging up against, and this piece will just sit down in here and form our stopper. Now all the shapes work sort of roughly right, sits against that edge there. All our distances are pretty good. There's a little bit of room for adjustment, and so far it is looking pretty good. So at this stage I thought, okay, well I'm ready to sort of make it out of a piece of aluminium. So I looked very closely at it, but is there anything else I can sort of tune up to help me get it exactly right? The front face here was a little bit out of parallel, so the bolt was a little bit out of parallel with the face of the master cylinder. You can see when I lift it up there, it sits flatter against the end of the master cylinder, so I corrected that, and yeah, I think that was about it. Maybe just minor adjustments. Alright, let's go back over to the bench. So from this, folks, I then went to this. So that's our finished piece there. You can see the similarities between the two. Some very slight variations in it. I corrected a couple of little angles and stuff because this was done mostly freehand. You know, so I started actually using a ruler on this and you know, trying to get some angles and get it all sort of pretty parallel. You can see it has lots of varying angles on it. But that being said, this entire piece was cut out on the bandsaw and then just finished off with a belt sander. It hasn't been on a mill or my big drill press or anything like this. All these holes, these are the mounting holes underneath, they were just drilled and tapped by hand. Same with our thread in the front. This is just an M12 bolt that I have just tapped a hole in the front there for, as you can see there. And the nuts on there to give me the adjustment that I need to be able to wind it out up against the master cylinder and get me that adjustment that I need. So once I had this fitted, the next thing to do was work out a position for the mounts underneath here. So we'll go back over to the car. Alrighty. So as you can see there, folks, that is pretty much where it sits, which, you know, is obviously going to do the job. So yes, the next thing to do was to work out the mounting position for it, for these two bolt holes here and here, and whether or not we're going to have access to them from underneath, which is obviously paramount. You don't want to be pulling the car apart to fit something like this. But where I have those holes is pretty much the only place you can put them. We'll get underneath and I'll show you where they are. So under the front here, folks, that's the driver's side front coilover. And if you look just above it in there, I'll just take the torch away for a second. You can see them where they are. That's where the hole, that's our hole position. Just to slightly to the rear of the top of the front strut. Now, it's very, very thick, the steel there. It's actually triple layer. There's a lap in the sheet metal on the top side, and there's also the plating for the front strut tower top thing. So it's a very, very strong area. It's quite thick there, the steel. So once it's bolted into that, no flex. And as you can see, there's plenty of access to the bolts there. I am using socket head bolts, just because of the closeness of that that one to that bit of a lip there. But that's absolutely fine. I worked out the position, it works, you know. That's about the best I could get. So anyway folks, that's where it comes through. So it gets you a bit of an idea. If you try and do this yourself, you'll see roughly where you've got to end up in order to make it work. So let's head back up the top. And there it is folks, she's all mounted in position now. So I'll just show you underneath again. It's a little bit easier to spot where to make these bolt holes now that the bolts are in. Let's go back under. Alright folks, that's them right there. So that's the position that you need to find if you are doing a similar thing. Just rear of the coilover top, and just where it starts to bend down over the top, and you've got to be inside that reinforcing section. Alrighty. So what I might do now folks is I'll just set up the camera and I'll get in the car and I'll shove my big hoof into the brake pedal and I'll try and demonstrate the flex that I'm talking about. Alright folks, as you saw from the last bit of footage, I couldn't get a decent shot of this. I haven't been able to get any decent shots right from the start, so I bit the bullet. I've taken all this wiring loom, unclipped it all, pulled it back, moved a lot of stuff out of the way, just so that we can get some decent footage of the piece installed, the stopper fully adjusted now. So you can see that's all nice. I'll go inside now and I will really shove the brake pedal down and see if we get any more movement here. I'm really shoving that folks, really fucking pushing it. As you can see, there's nothing. No movement at all. And that is what we wanted. All in all, 100% successful folks. So if you have a right hand drive 370Z or a 370 GT, this will hopefully give you a bit of an idea of how to set up a brake master cylinder stopper on your particular vehicle. Once again, due to the fact that there's just nothing available on the market. It's a pretty basic thing. I imagine you could do this in very many ways. You could just bend up some steel with a bit of a, bit of a 90 on the front with a bolt going through it, shape it to fit the bottom. There's many ways you can approach this, but it is quite easily doable. This isn't a big project. It didn't take that long to do. No fancy tools involved, and great success. I think that's going to be a really huge improvement. So regular watchers of the channel, I apologise for a short, very specific video that will probably only interest a very small percentage of the people who watch my channel. But honestly folks, this week I wasn't planning on putting anything out. I'm so busy with my real job, with the lead up to Christmas, that I hadn't planned on putting anything out on YouTube this week. But I was knocking this out in the shed in my spare time, and I thought, I might as well just record it and put it on there. It might interest a few of you people out there. So look, honestly, this video helps a handful of you right-hand drive 370Z owners. Well, it was worthwhile doing. So anyway, folks, thanks for stopping by the Aussie Shed. Bloody pleasure to have you here. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Remember to leave a comment. Helps me get noticed by the YouTube algorithm. And as always, folks, I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.